Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Politics Today, and in this programme today we'll be discussing one remarkable success story when it comes to the issue of abortion. And in today's programme I'm joined by Ben John, who is part of the Wilberforce Academy of Christian Concern, together with Rebecca Moffat, who's a communications officer for Christian Concern. It's great you guys are back on. It's been a while, but I'm pleased that you're both here and you're both doing exceptional work on the front lines. I'm going to start off with you, John. Can you just provide context to this remarkable case that the Christian Legal Centre, which is another branch of Christian Concern, has actually won regarding a ruling regarding abortion and these, abortion reversal pills?
Yeah, so at the start of lockdown, and great to be back with you, Simon.
Pleasure.
At the start of lockdown, the government introduced, under the guise of lockdown, they introduced DIY home abortions, whereby women could ring up and have pills posted to them. And there are two pills that women are given. One allegedly kills the baby, and the second ejects the baby. And what was found during lockdown was that oftentimes women would receive the pills and would not actually take the first pill right away. Maybe they were still undecided. Maybe they'd been pressured into initially getting into the process by a partner or things like that. And so they weren't initially taking the pills. But what would often happen is, in the height of the moment, just had an argument with a partner or something was stressful, the thought of going through or carrying the baby. So they took the first pill, and often what would happen is that they would regret it immediately, just because the way the emotions were very heightened. And so, and I'm sure Rebecca will be able to speak a little bit more technically about this, that the first pill effectively blocks the hormone that's necessary to create the safe environment for the baby. And one doctor, Dr Dermot Kearney, was sometimes contacted by women through a very roundabout way of processes. So they would take the first pill and be like, how can I stop this? Searching these things up, and they were put into contact with Dr Dermot Kearney, who would prescribe a pill, progesterone, which basically counteracts the work of that first abortion pill by basically pumping. Pumping sounds a bit more aggressive, but basically it brings the hormone necessary to help protect the baby, so basically increasing the probability of the chances of the baby surviving. So if they didn't take this, the kind of guidance from the NHS was, if you change your mind, don't do it, just don't do anything. When in fact there was this hormone available, which is sometimes used for women who are at risk of miscarrying. So we're not talking about quack medicine, quack science. He was prescribing a hormone that would help protect the baby. And as a result of that, there were 31 babies that survived. 32 babies survived because of his work.
That's amazing. That's quite a testimony he's got. I know we'll go to him later. Rebecca, great to have you on the programme as well. Well, always welcome you too. But let's put this in kind of context, because as a recording of this programme, we see that the government's health and care bill, and particularly we're talking about the amendment put out by Baroness Sugg, who, believe it or not, is a Conservative, clearly in the hands of the abortion lobbyists, has succeeded in pushing through the amendment that has made the DIY or DIY abortion pills a permanent fixture of this legislation. Can you give us a context of how this happened? And because I think as Christians, it was only kind of late notice that we actually learned about this amendment and how this is part of the government's new legislation now to have DIY abortions at home, despite all the medical evidence that over 10,000 women that have taken this in a year have faced and needed medical treatment.
Yep, certainly. So Health and Care Bill is one of the flagship bills of the government. This is one that they really want to get through. But it's just testament to how the abortion lobby really works. So initially the government they'd consulted on DIY abortion, That's what we're calling it. They'd done that back in November 2020, 6 months after they'd brought in the law and said, do you want to make this permanent? About 70% of respondents said, no, let's get rid of this policy immediately. It's not good for people. There's a huge risk of coercion, which actually evidence has provided as well. And we've seen that in reality. So there's that to go on. Then later, a lot later actually, they released those results, and then Sajid Javid, the health secretary, basically petitions the government, and the government announced that they will no longer be having this policy in as a permanent thing. They're going to take it down from August of this year, 2022. Then what happens? The health and care bill is hijacked essentially by the pro-abort lobby. Baroness Sugg, who is obviously talking to these people, she introduces this amendment to the House of Lords, in fact, so not even the House of Commons, it's the House of Lords, where it's going through its third reading. So it's basically about to be passed. She introduces this amendment which says, let's make DIY abortion permanent. And that was voted on mid-March, about 16th of March, in the House of Lords, about 1 o'clock in the morning, and shockingly made it through. Only 35 Lords voted against. One bishop voted against, the Bishop of Durham. That was it. There were 70 plus bishops, 70 plus Lords that voted it through. So a very, very small number of Lords voting this through. So then, of course, it makes its way back to the Commons, where they've got to vote on all of these amendments. That happened the 30th of March. That went through the Commons, and sadly, they voted it through as well. It was a very close vote, 215 votes for, 188 votes against, so only a margin of 27. And sadly, they voted to make DIY abortion permanent now. So it's going to be a permanent fixture until further notice, essentially, until they can vote it down.
Tragic, really tragic. And Ben, can you just describe some of the dark arts that are used by the abortion lobby? I mean, the fact is we're discussing this pill that can reverse abortions. Makes you think that why are they concerned with only probably success rate of only 32 babies, as it were, that have been saved through this pill, and yet they are absolutely determined that nothing happens like this. Can you just show with us what they will do and the lengths that they will go to in order to ensure that there is no way of reversing any abortions whatsoever? Because surely this must be much bigger than profits and money.
Yeah. Well, the 32 figure could be much higher. So what I didn't say earlier was that when the abortion lobby found out that Dr Dermot Kearney was providing this service and helping women in trouble, they themselves reported him to the General Medical Council. And what the General Medical Council then did, presumably themselves hijacked by pro-abort activists, was threaten Dr Dermot Kearney with taking his medical licence away unless he stopped providing the service, pending an investigation which took 9 months plus. So we would have seen many, many more. The 32 were the 32 that he helped with up to that point. And then it stops. So there haven't, as far as I'm aware, in the last few months, there haven't been any babies born as a result of his help and service. Why do they? Because they're anti-life. So oftentimes we say, you know, there's all this language about pro-life, pro-choice, pro-abort. The reality is they're pro-death. They're anti-life. I think it's a very spiritual battle, and their eyes have been darkened. They're believing lots of lies about themselves, about the world, about the value of the unborn child, and actually their hearts they hate God, and they hate life, and they hate what is good. And so why would they stop a man who's helping women who are regretting their decisions? It's because they think they know what's best. They think they love abortion. They think it's a good thing. We're no longer at the and this was a wrong position in the first place, the kind of what Bill Clinton, safe, legal and rare, we're not at that point anymore. We're 40 years past that. We're at more and more. Good, or dangerous, good and often. We don't really care about, there's all these reports about the various abortion clinics and how terrible the service is, and no one cares. And they don't care about the numbers. There's profit behind the numbers. And they think it's a good thing. No longer is it it's a tough decision for people to make and, people don't take it lightly. It's, no, we want to make it as easy as possible. It's simply like another kind of clinic visit.
So in other words, it's kind of driven by ideology, rather than actually driven by the concerns of the mother.
It's driven by idolatry.
Idolatry, yeah.
The trouble is, it's labelled women's health care, right? It's all about caring for women. This doesn't care for women at all, actually. And when you look at the stats, there are so many women that have ended up in hospital as a result of being sent these pills. We know of at least 10,000 cases of women being sent these pills and then ending up in hospital from complications from having taken them at home. That's not good healthcare. If that were any other medicine, you'd be having reports, you'd be having investigations, police would probably be involved, but it's abortion, it's women's healthcare, and therefore, it's allowed to continue. It's like Ben says, nobody cares. This is the real battle.
No, absolutely. Share with us this success story. But before we talk about this success story, because there aren't many, I'm afraid, particularly after the light of the health and care bill that the government has now passed and will come onto the statute books very soon, is the concern of the individual themselves. So can you explain what the stress of Dr. Kearney has been through, being struck off from his profession, under an investigation for 18 months because he was wanting to save the lives of babies that mothers want to keep those babies rather than actually abort them through these DIY home abortion kits?
Well, personally knowing Dr. Dermot Kearney, I'm inspired by his grace and peace, because I don't know how I would deal with the frustration of I'm saving lives, which is what he was doing, and being told you cannot do this, or we'll take away your medical license. So he's been allowed to continue practicing as a doctor, just not this service. You can save some lives, just not these little ones. And it has been a trial for him. But I think through it all, he's remained joyful and peaceful, and continued to fight on and speak the truth about life. Through it all, and he has been busy supporting those mothers that he had been helping, and walking alongside them. That was one of the things that the investigation showed, was that none of these women or mothers made complaints about him, and they were hugely positive. And in fact, one of the abortion lobbyists, and this was found, misrepresented one of the ladies' testimonies to make it out like he was pushing an agenda on them, make it sound like he was imposing and coercing them into changing their mind. All they had to say was he was a kind, caring, compassionate doctor who tried to support me when no one else would.
Rebecca, do you want to introduce the Christian Concern video on this one, featuring Dr. Kearney himself? And there's your camera there.
Yes, of course. So this is a video with Dr. Kearney himself and some of the babies that he's helped to save. He's telling his story about how he helped to be the hero of this pandemic.
Why did I personally get involved in this in the first place? And the basic answer is because the need was there. The women were looking for this service. They could not get it anywhere else, so nobody else was providing the service. So somebody, I felt, had to do it. It's brought a lot of heartache. There were times when I thought, I can't continue this. I've lost 2 babies in a row. But then when you get 3 in a row that are saved, it makes it so much worthwhile. But it's emotionally draining. The GMC wanted us to be suspended completely for 18 months, but the The Interim Orders Tribunal said, well, that would be a little bit disproportionate. In my case, I wasn't allowed to administer, prescribe or recommend progesterone for abortion pill reversal. I wasn't also allowed to do any voluntary work whatsoever without GMC permission. It's important to realise that no complaints came from any of the women or from their families or anybody who was directly involved with the service we were providing. It purely came from the abortion providers who didn't like what we were doing. So they complained to the GMC that what we were doing was unethical, that I was bribing these women I was trying to enforce my religious beliefs, my pro-life beliefs on them, which again, there was no evidence for that. And so we knew that the strongest defence we were going to have was going to be from the women who had the experience of what I and Dr Riley had been providing to them. Expectant management is the worst thing you can do because there's really three options. If a woman changes her mind after having taken the first pill, she can either not take the second pill and wait and see what happens, expectant management, or she can do what the abortion providers tell her, well, take the second pill, because even though it might be against her consent to do so, but they're forcing her to do it because they say you must do this, even though she's withdrawn her consent by not wanting to do so. Or she could get progesterone. And it seems that from the evidence that's available, that the worst thing you could advise people or women is to do nothing, is to expectant management. So those three options, the worst one is what the RCOG are currently recommending, that don't take the second pill. The best option, in our opinion, is to get progesterone because it will not only greatly increase the risk of the baby surviving, but will also reduce the risk of significant hemorrhage. "32 babies have been born. I had 20 babies, so 20 of my women have had healthy, happy babies. 12 of Eileen, so 32 in total, which an overall success rate of about 50 and 55%, which is still not as good as we'd like, but better than the alternative of doing nothing. We've been involved, I've been a cardiologist and general physician for many years. I've been working in the UK for 19 years in the NHS. But far and away, this is the most rewarding thing that either of us have ever done. It's brought a lot of joy to us and to mothers and their partners, the fathers of the babies, and to their extended families. You fall in love. You fall in love with the women who contact you and come looking for help, even though I've never met any of them. I've met two of them well after their babies were born. But I was unaware of the depth of gratitude. It was only when I later read the witness statements that were obtained by the legal team at CLC that I was in tears reading some of the testimonies that these girls gave, because while I knew they were appreciative, I just didn't realise the enormity of it until then.
Very, very heartwarming, and it's wonderful news to see that we can actually have victory if we continue to pray, if we continue to lobby our members of parliament, and that we continue to stand for righteousness in our nation, just like Christian Concern are doing. Ben, can you just describe the kind of outcome of this case by the General Medical Council and their ruling? Because they claimed that those who were against Dr Kearney, there was no basis for their allegations, which turns out that this wouldn't have stood up in the High Court when presented with the evidence.
Yeah, they ruled that there was no case to answer for, that there was no merit in taking it forward. And actually, so it feels like we've gone through all this process. I mean, it's easy to get frustrated and be like, okay, well, thank you. Think of all the babies we could have saved. But I think now it's the hard work begins again of rescuing lives and saving babies and supporting mothers, particularly in light of the permanent ruling of the DIY abortions. But no, we're just hugely thankful to God that for His favour in this, for the vindication of Dr Dermot, and we're hoping to sort of help him and support him as he continues to support women now with this service, and we hope that many more are added to that number of 32. You saw some photos there of a mother and her child. It was so inspiring meeting some of those parents and children, knowing how close they were to not being born, not surviving. I think it's important that we, there's various cases he was saying it's around 55% there, the success rate, want to be able to think about ways that we can get that up. I think the sad thing is that's what the General Medical Council should be doing. That's what these pro-women organisations should be doing. They should be thinking about, okay, well, how can we support? They always go on about choice, but they're not pro-choice. They don't like that choice. So we want to be doing more to be supporting women and supporting their children and seeing the next generation thrive.
Absolutely. And Rebecca, what was it like then to have all these little kids running around Christian Concern? I suppose because the big legal centre that is Christian Concern became a bit like a creche, did it, for an afternoon?
It did for a good few hours on a Saturday afternoon, I think. No, it was wonderful actually. It was wonderful to have Dr. Kearney come in, tell his story, and then to see the mothers, the parents with their children, as Ben said. They've survived, they've made it through, and actually all of these parents are so thankful for Dr. Kearney's work. I don't think there's a single person that he helped that has regretted his help. Sure, they've all regretted taking the pills, but his help has just been invaluable, and you can see that when you meet them as well. They're all, it was wonderful. It was the first time that he'd met some of the babies and the mothers that he'd helped as well. So it was great to set that up, to get them together.
Very cool, very cool. I love the video as well. And going on to this one, we don't know who's watching today's programme, and anyone that's contemplating an abortion because they're under pressure or anything else, and it's always better coming from a woman than a man. So can you maybe reassure any viewers that we have watching this programme today that may be contemplating an abortion or taking one of these awful DIY pills at home, why they should stop and think again? And this is not about coercion. This is actually working in the best interests of the mother.
Of course, I think it's a case of being compassionate. That's what the pro-life movement is really about. It's saying, look, there is another way out. If you're finding yourself in a crisis pregnancy, an unexpected pregnancy, you know what, you don't have to abort. You don't have to terminate your pregnancy. Talk to people. There are people like the Pregnancy Crisis Helpline can give you options. If you've been sent these pills and taken that first one and regret it, there are people like Dr. Kearney who can help you. This doesn't have to be the end. And actually, we as a pro-life movement as well need to be getting alongside these women and saying, look,
absolutely,
there's a better way forward. There's a better way forward, and we want to support you in that.
Absolutely. So well done for that. And Ben, we're coming towards the end of the programme now, and you want to talk about your up-and-coming Wilberforce Academy to try and encourage some of our younger viewers that may be students at universities that want to get involved and fight for issues like the unborn, or fight for ethical issues that are facing our nation. So there's your opportunity.
Yeah, well, I think for many young people, particularly students, young professionals, recent graduates, Christians, these aren't issues that we talk about. Thankful to come with you here to Revelation TV to share about these issues, but for many in the churches, issues like abortion, euthanasia, issues relating to the family and marriage, it's important that Christians have a voice, a positive voice to speak about that. And our Wilberforce Academy is raising up a community of young Christians passionate about these issues, passionate about proclaiming the Lordship of Christ into the culture. So it's a 1-week residential program in September, 5th to the 10th of September. And it's an amazing opportunity to come together with other like-minded Christians to worship God and to learn about the issues and to be equipped to go out into the culture. So young people can find out more and apply at www.wilberforceacademy.org.uk.
Which is on the screen now, which is good. So, which is a good thing. Now, how do you engage young people to get active? Because primarily your generation and younger really only communicate. You guys are awful on email. I'm pretty bad on emails, but you guys are pretty bad. But how do you actually communicate to a younger generation, knowing that most of the way you communicate is through social media, knowing that they need to be the next voice, they need to be the next generation, and also prepare for kind of leadership, because it's tough. It's extremely tough living in a post-Christian era.
Yep, so I mean, we're on social media as well. We would encourage people to follow us. You know, you can get all of the latest updates that way: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. No Snapchat yet, but well, you know, we'll see. But I'd say, you know, get involved on social media. We've got a presence there, but it's also about more than that too. And you can find resources on social media from us to our website as well. It goes deeper. You know, if we want to make a noise and be heard, then that involves making noise towards our parliamentarians, our politicians, our authorities. So get involved. Definitely get involved. Write to your MP. Write to a Lord if you want. Get involved in council elections. You know, vote. It's not just, you know, it's not just social media. It goes deeper than that. Make your voice heard.
Absolutely. Almost the same question to you as well, Ben. So there are, I mean, I know that probably the most powerful media voice right now is a social media platform. The old traditional form of media like we have here is becoming a thing of the past, particularly for your generation and younger. So how do you develop strategies to help young people get active, to care about these issues, and also to make them think that, yeah, you can make a difference?
Well, I think, in terms of making a difference, I think it's important that we share stories about people making a difference, that people can see that, you know, people are making a difference, people are doing things. You know, young people will be at different stages of their life, so they won't necessarily be at their height of their career and influence. But knowing that, you know, in the little decisions we take now, we can have big impacts. And whether it's talking to your pastor about these kinds of issues, engaging there, or writing to our MPs and questions like that. Regarding what you were asking about, how can we get people mobilised and things like that, I think that one of the key things we're really trying to do with our Wilberforce Academy is create that community. And I think friendship is one of the key ways. I meet so many young Christians who just feel lonely because at times they don't necessarily feel supported in their vocation, in what they're doing, and the issues they're increasingly finding it difficult.
Ben, Rebecca, thank you. You're definitely leaders, and you're a moral example to your generation. I just want to thank you for watching Politics Today. Let's continue to pray for the unborn. Let's continue to speak up for the unborn. And it's great to finally get a victory in this area. So thank you for watching this week's Politics Today.